That's coming up. But we're going to move on to Eric Hovde. Eric Hovde running for U.S. Senate. Been on the show before. Wow, I guess you're getting some people's attention, Eric. I've seen quite a number of attacks on your campaign so far, which is to be expected. This is not, Marcus of Queensbury rules here. But let's see. You're a Washington insider. I didn't even know that. But, hey, can you tell me how I can get some stimulus, please, if you're a Washington insider? Because I'd like the inside track on that.
Well, as you said, Vicki, career politicians, when they get worried, they start attacking. They can't talk about the issues, so I'm getting attacked by Tammy Baldwin, Mark Newman being Mark Newman, just like he did to Scott Walker, has his buddies Club for Growth getting ready to attack with negative TV ads. Tommy's putting out press memos attacking me. And, the funny thing is, I'm out there. I've stayed positive the whole time with my television ads, my radio ads, and I'm talking about the issues. The real issues that are affecting all your listeners, the fact the economy's weakening up, the massive regulations, our broken tax system, debt that's going to take us off a financial cliff. And none of these guys want to talk about the issues. In fact, you try to ask them the questions about how would you change entitlements. They won't even tell you. What are you going to do about Social Security? What are you going to do about these issues? They won't tell you. So, I'm staying positive on the issues, and, I guess I'm a Washington insider, even though I've never been involved in politics in my life ever before. But, that's career politicians.
Yeah, well, you know what? It is to be expected. You know what I would like to ask you about, and that is a story I saw today. So the economy is softening again. We are potentially hitting another skid. We have got threats in Europe that we've got to deal with. We have got, as you said, an abject refusal of anybody to deal with serious things. It's certainly on the Democrat side, entitlements. In fact, Tammy Baldwin just voted again to re-up Obamacare. She voted against the repeal. But I just saw a story today that the Fed is thinking of yet another stimulus, making my retirement work less, simply paper-overing the depth of our problems here. And it hasn't been getting us over this hump. We need to start generating better than 1.5%, 2% economic growth and still banking record numbers of foreclosures and unemployment.
Yeah, Vicki, to be real serious, I'm worried that the economy may already be sinking back into recession. Second quarter growth numbers were 1.9%. They were supposed to be, pursuant to the Fed, 2.5%, 3%. Now third quarter numbers are being revised down, and it looks like we may only grow at 1 to 1.4% in the third quarter.
That's France.
Yeah. Look at it this way. We've been enacting the exact same policies that Europe has been doing. As I've talked all through my campaign, we have, more than 100% debt to our GDP. We're adding 6.5% more this year. We're borrowing 38 cents on every dollar we spend. We have massive amounts of regulation. We have 81,000 pages of federal regulations. Now, I don't know how many regulations are on each page, but think of how stunning that is. In fact, Gallup polled small business and asked them, what's the biggest impediment for hiring? They said excessive regulations. 46% of them said we are not hiring because of excessive regulations. So, we have policies in Washington that have been very similar to what Europe has. And in fact, if you look as, again, something I've talked endlessly about, when you roll in the federal government that's at 24% of our economy and state and local governments, all combined, it's about 38.9% of our economy. That is where Europe is. They may be a little bit higher by a couple percentage points. We have enacted the exact same failure of economic policies that Europe has. And, again, none of these politicians want to talk about it. All they want to do is paper over it, talk over it. And the Fed, as you said, is getting ready to potentially do another quantitative easing, which is just money printing. And it's crushed older people's retirement savings, everybody's. It's benefiting debtors at the expense of savers, which is so wrong. And it's not doing anything but propping up the equity markets in the short term. And it's distorting our financial system. So I'm very worried about where we're heading.
We should also, the other thing that I think is interesting, and people don't really think about this, is that not only does it affect what the actual value of your retirement is, in the end, this kind of manipulation, it eventually drives up the price of other things. I mean, not just because of the drought, we were paying more for food. We have seen these policies that have been pursued by this administration make everything cost more, but my dollar is worth less. It's very frustrating to see, to think about that. Things are more. I can get less for my dollar, and I've got to put out more of those less valued dollars in order to purchase these things. And in real adjusted dollars, we're actually paying more and getting less.
Yeah, the sad thing is wages haven't increased over the last 11 years.
I will say they've increased. They actually went up 6.7% in Wisconsin, but I think it was in the Obama administration stimulus, it was 0.2% wage increases since the stimulus.
Yeah, well, but I mean, if you look at all private sector, public sector wages, public sector's done well under President Obama. I mean, you had one person making $170,000 a year at the Department of Transportation. Now you have 1,700 people doing it after his term. But
hey, Washington Insider, can you get me a job at the USDOT, please?
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, if you look at it, wages haven't increased over the last 11 years, and yet the price of all our goods going up. And that's when the Fed engages in quantitative easing, which is essentially money printing. Last year, the Federal Reserve bought 61% of all Treasury debt issued. It drives down the value of your dollar and drives up the cost of all your basic necessities.
Yeah, real costs. Yes.
Yeah, look at the price of sugar, cocoa beans, coffee beans, wheat, corn. Look at the price of nickel, aluminum, you name it, any commodity, copper, gold, gas prices. That's why all this is going up. And in my view, the Fed is almost complicit in all this government spending, because if they weren't doing this, interest rates would be going up, the economy would be slowing down more, and people would be screaming at Washington to stop the spending. But, they've helped allow this massive amount of spending to occur, which is just distorting our system and driving us off a financial cliff.
It does nothing to solve the problem of the debt. It does absolutely nothing except exacerbate the looming nightmare that could be our debt crisis here in this country. It is absolutely terrifying if suddenly we, allegedly the leader of the global economy, suddenly find ourselves on our knees like Greece. Think about that. We're supposed to be the people bailing everybody else out. We could be the country in trouble. Well, we are the country in trouble because some people actually think this is an inevitability.
Look, on the CNBC this morning, they had Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles. Alan Simpson, former senator for Wyoming, Erskine Bowles, who was chief of staff for Clinton. Both of them said it is the most predictable financial crisis that we've ever seen. We can all watch it coming. We know it's going to happen, and yet people in Washington, politicians, have done nothing about it. Now, you have a few of them like Ron Johnson and a few good, conservative senators that are trying to deal with it, and some good conservative members like Paul Ryan and Reed Ribble and, in the House that are trying to deal with it. But the reality of it is this president, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, they haven't passed a budget in 3.5 years, and they're driving us right off the cliff. And they say we're trying to protect those that don't have anything. No, they're going to destroy people that rely on Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, because their policies are going to ensure that the country goes bankrupt, or we're going to go through a massive devaluation and hyperinflation, which will destroy the standard of living for all Americans.
I was going to say, Eric, I mean, they're going to destroy my ability, if this keeps up, to have value in my retirement. I'm going to use a little bit of Social Security if it's still around. Generally speaking, my retirement is my investments. And my investments might there might be a number that looks appealing when I open up my portfolio. But when you consider what the devaluation actually means for what my purchasing power is in retirement, it's terrifying. You've got people who are hitting retirement very, very soon, and it's not necessarily good for anybody at this point.
No, and that's why we have to take this country back. That's the whole reason. I never had a desire to get involved in politics. To open yourself up to personal attacks, give up all your private time in your life. I'm working 24/7 around the clock, trying to meet and talk to people. the only reason I'm doing this is I am so concerned what's going to happen to our country. I love our country. It's afforded, my great-grandparents and grandpa who immigrated here from Norway to, came with nothing, their shirt on their back and a little satchel, and to make a life for themselves. And then for my father to prosper, and then for me to have an opportunity. That's what America's been about. And instead, they have totally distorted our economic system. I'm now supposed to feel guilty because I've worked hard and succeeded in life and have done good and employed people and helped support their families and given, money away to people that are struggling. But now I'm bad because I'm the 1%. I mean, what's happened? It's like somebody gave me. I met this lady this past week on our tour because I'm right now in Sturgeon Bay. I'm doing Take Back Washington tour, and we're going to every market. And she said, what I feel is happening to America is it's like the frog sitting in the pot of water that keeps getting warmed up, and now we're almost at boiling level. But we've become so numb to all of this. And we're now at that crisis point where it's going to become boiling in the next couple of years if we don't get serious. So, fortunately, Wisconsinites are turned into it, and we saw the battle here with Scott Walker. But now we've got to take back the Senate, and that's why I'm in this. And hopefully we can take back the presidency.
I think about the way we're getting less for our money, and we're seeing costs explode. And I think about the energy sector in particular. So put aside my concerns about my retirement, because I'm still young. I hope that guys like you get into the Senate, and lots more conservatives, sort of constitutionally minded conservatives, get into the Senate and turn this thing around. But then I think about, my God, you've got a guy who we've got this wonderful, there are small silver linings, right? You've got the natural gas sector is exploding because of shale gas. You've got the president looking to put up regulations that make it difficult to bring new shale gas production online. You've got new clean coal technology that can lower the cost of energy. And the president's EPA says absolutely not. This is for your own good, and is going to make the cost of energy, even here in Wisconsin, go up by 28%. You've got politicians in Wisconsin, liberals in Wisconsin, who want to put up 470-foot wind towers so that I can pay more and other people can lose value in their property. And it just doesn't look very optimistic, Eric.
Yeah, and that's why we've got to rise up and take back our country. You're so right. It's on the energy independence. Career politicians have been talking about this for 40 years. Last year, of our $556 billion trade deficit, 59%, $392 billion came from one commodity, oil. And yet we are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have 270 trillion cubic square feet of natural gas. We have a trillion five of oil shale. North Dakota is booming because they're drilling on private lands. We should be, exploiting all these natural resources right here in our country. We should get rid of any type of trade deficit. And North Dakota has a 3% unemployment rate. Wouldn't we love that for all of the country?
Think about
trying to find people.
I mean, in Wisconsin,
take these jobs.
We've got sand mining, possibly gold mining in Wausau, iron mining up north, and you can't do it. And you can't. But we're going to put up 470-foot wind towers, man. I'm feeling good about that. Eric, where can people learn more? I just got an email saying, where can I learn more about this guy?
EricForSenate.com. EricForSenate.com, and Eric is with a C.
EricForSenate.com. A pleasure, as always. Thank you, Eric Hovde.
Vicki, you're a rock star. I love you, and good afternoon to all your listeners.
All right. Thanks very much. U.S. Senate candidate Eric Hovde, EricForSenate.com, if you'd like to learn more.